come before us, may we strive to leave our community better for the generations to follow. Amen. You stand with me, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we've got an agenda before us. Do I have any requests for changing or the order or adding anything to the agenda?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
relative to the agenda, if you would please, if you're okay with the order of the agenda, it is out of order from your rules of procedure. And so if you are okay with that, then we would need you to suspend the rules temporarily as part of your motion to approve the agenda. You have that authority under your current rules, but again, it would just be a temporary suspension. The reason why we did that is because we needed for the new business, those new business items to come in front of the old business. And so that was our request.
Very good.
Thank
you. I would be happy to make that change. I'm opening the floor for a motion
Motion to approve
with the change of order.
with the changes suspended for the normal procedure.
Okay, thank you. Second?
Do we need to put a date or a timeline on the suspension of procedure? Okay.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. All right, we've got the minutes from September 14th have been filed and presented to us for review. Do we have any corrections or changes to the minutes of the September 14th meeting?
Make a motion to approve?
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as submitted from September 14th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You got it, Bruce?
Opposed? Welcome. That's okay. All right, thank you. So we've filed the minutes. So we've got our first order of business, new business this evening will be presented by Whitney Hodges with staff. Ms. Hodges, would you please take the floor?
Good evening. The case that I have before you is a rezoning on Knob Creek, and it is at the corner of Mountain View and Knob Creek. Currently, it is zoned B4, which is a planned arterial business, and they would like to do something residentially and are asking for RP3. Where this is located is on your screen here. What they're looking to do is 178 townhome units. These would be rental units. The site plan in your packet that was in your packet is the same as this one. It's just a little cleaner, and so that's why I was emailed out as well. But they will have 2 points of ingress and egress. They're utilizing this common shared area here with the FBI agency, and then as well coming out on Mountain View. They're going to share. This has already been planned before, but to share the stormwater detention area that's been built right back here. One of the things that staff had talked about was a connection, some sort of street connection here, because there is a stub. What makes that a little improbable is because there is actually a gate here, which would make that, again, not something that would be super practical. In your staff report, we were still kind of working through some things, and they have addressed some of staff's issues since when we needed to publish the report. So while they had shown how much open space they had not calculated it, and so that has been provided. Part of the RP3 in its intent is to create kind of this unique way of developing property, of which you also consider a pedestrian or how people get around. And so they've included their internal sidewalks and then notations for sidewalks on West Mountain View. They will, because of the Knob Creek Overpass project, at this point, putting in sidewalks on Knob Creek would be a little futile. So that the city will kind of take care of that. But they have also, the owners right now have taken care of making sure that we have enough right of way. The engineers on the project are the same engineers for the Knob Creek Overpass, so there is a lot of talk, and they can be a lot of compatibility and being able to engineer around things. And I would like to bring up the Knob Creek Overpass because it's probably one of the most talked about things with this request. This is not the right one. Oh no. Sorry, Preston did this really great map that somehow did not get in here, which makes me wonder what I have pulled by accident. We shall see. But this is an old site plan layout. So we have this is how this alignment will work with this project of where this will come around this way instead of coming through the underpass. Now, please say, we're going to come back to that. I would like to talk about the transportation first and then get back to some other things about density. So I asked our transportation engineer, Anthony Todd, to prepare some data on what would be trips that could possibly happen. And looking at something that's about 50,000 square feet. So it is a rather large, that would be some large gross square footage. Where I would like to stay is in this area here because it's where the most comparable data would occur. This would be some all-day trips that would be generated from an office building, shopping center, some type of specialty retail, or a supermarket. And if you're looking at something residential, then an apartment would be about 1,180 units. Now, there isn't data for townhomes that was available, so I reached out to the engineers of the apartment with Longbridge, and we kind of have found a study from VDOT that says that townhome units would generate about 10 trips per day per unit. So this means that this particular use would be about, let's say, 1,170. So something similar to the apartments is essentially what I'm trying to say there. I want to get to, this is not all out of order. And so to look at that a little bit more in kind of the vicinity of the area, it's, again, because the underpass, as it is now, because that's where we are right now, if you've got this site here, knowing that you've got two access points in and out, most of the attractors for traffic are going to be towards town, so to the west, or maybe to the north. And so they're either turning out on Mountain View to come out towards North Johnson City, or going to the left to come to State of Franklin at some point. The attractors for traffic on the other side of the underpass would be possibly going to Jonesboro, Providence Academy, and maybe Boones Creek Elementary, or middle, which one's ever out there. So that there's not a lot of draw to go to the other side. If this were on this side of the underpass, that would probably create more trips underneath here. Now, if this were to stay commercial, it would become an attractor. So those residents over here, just like they do now to get to something over here, would come in and out of the underpass. Not to say that 178 townhomes is not going to increase traffic in the area, but that most of the traffic is going to go back towards town. So this is another instance where our future land use doesn't necessarily always indicate what's kind of happening in the market. And we have just 2 months ago saw a apartment complex on West Oakland. There is more residential that's occurring out here. So it does say to stay commercial. I think staff would support it going residential. Just so you know the densities that are out there, this is one of the lower ones from what's either already was approved by the City Commission last Thursday, as far just to give you a comparison. A neighborhood meeting was held last Tuesday. Again, underpass and the overpass was really the big topic at that neighborhood meeting, and staff does recommend approval of the request. And I'm available for any questions that you
I'll open the floor for the commission to ask questions of staff.
Could you go back to your slide on the traffic?
I feel like
just wanna
there's a
make sure I
saved
understand.
file somewhere.
There you go,
Yeah.
right. So with the town, what was the total number all day on townhomes?
1,170.
Okay, but
170.
So you're talking about 10 trips per day per unit,
Yes.
and there's going to be 178 units?
Mm-hmm.
That'd be like 1,700.
1,700. I'm getting my math
Yeah,
wrong,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
So Knob Creek and Mountain View are collectors or arterials?
Yes, they are. They're collectors.
And when you were talking to the engineers, are there, I know we just kind of upgraded or did some road improvements on Mountain View, and I know Knob Creek is eventually going to be upgraded. Are there any other, I mean, is there going to be like any widening of turn lanes, ingress, egress?
They'll have, they will have to provide decel lanes.
Decel lanes.
As part of their project.
All right, thank you.
And Brandon Paschal is here, who is the engineer with our staff that has been in charge of the Knob Creek Overpass project. So if you have questions about that, he would be the person to talk to, to answer them.
Okay.
Is that question like, when?
You know what? We are doing the things in the right directions. Last Thursday, there was an approval for an increase in monies for land acquisition, which is something that is needed. It's all these little steps, and we're doing all of our little steps.
So
you-
do we have any idea of the time frame? I mean, are we talking a year,
Sorry,
or are we talking
Brandon.
10 years?
We've already
Great,
been
I'm
through
gonna
the 10 years, Timber. We've already been through the 10 years, so.
You're right.
This is just my best guess, and I'd say at a minimum, a year and a half before we can get started. We still have to finish up with the right-of-way acquisition. We're working with 5 different landowners out there, plus the railroad. And right now, we've resubmitted some plans for the bridge. And we had to make a change with that, some engineering changes. And the review on that will go back and forth with CSX as well as TDOT. And I don't know, maybe 6 months to do that. Maybe that's optimistic.
Hey, sir, for
Yeah.
the record, would you please state your name and your
Oh,
position?
I'm Brandon Paschal, and I work in Public Works Engineering.
City Public Works.
Division.
Thank you, Brandon.
Right.
Well, since you're up there, I do have a question. With respect to Mountain View, is it up to the landowner to put in the sidewalks, or is that the city that puts in the sidewalks on the Mountain View side?
Let me see if I can bring, which direction are those plans? I can show you where the project's going to end.
Okay, thanks.
The project, the overpass project will end right around in here.
Uh-huh.
So the rest of it would be the responsibility of the property owner to build any sidewalks up through here.
But would those be required under current, or sidewalks required? Okay. Thanks, sir.
Could you also kind of talk us through where the new overpass is going to come down and then integrate into West Mountain View Road? But then again, Knob Creek Road's going to be impacted as well. What are the roads going to look like in the next,
Previous one.
Something for you.
what will we be doing to those 2 roads to accommodate the additional traffic flow?
There's going to be 5 lanes all the way from Marketplace Boulevard, all the way through here. And then instead of turning left to go through the underpass, we're going to go straight ahead, across the railroad tracks, and then tie back into Knob Creek Road up here. Claude Simmons Road will come around here and just connect into this old section of Knob Creek Road. And this portion right through here is going to be eliminated, so there won't be any traffic through here at all. And this will be called Claude Simmons Road, all the way back up to Knob Creek Road here. And Mizpah Hills Drive, Road, whichever it is, will connect into Claude Simmons Road, right through here. We bought the 3 properties right in here in order to make a good intersection right through here. We will have a, where's the traffic signal? Here. We'll have a traffic signal here and do some upgrades to the traffic signals down here.
Is there any widening of West Mountain View Road?
No, it'll be 2 lanes. Yeah, through here.
But there'll be a deceleration lane, right, going into the new development? I thought I saw,
Is that correct?
yes? Okay.
Sir, when Knob Creek goes over the overpass, it's 5 lanes?
Right.
And when does it step back to 2 lanes?
Not until you get back up towards Stone Ridge, back up through here.
How long is that project supposed to take?
I would guess it 3 years. 2 to 3 years.
So, in terms of Mountain View Road, is there gonna be any sidewalk connectivity done by the city once this particular development goes in to have sidewalks along Mountain View Road to, all the way up to whatever that,
Hanover, maybe?
Hanover, thank you.
I don't know of any, do you know of any?
That would be more of a. That would be outside the scope, not only of this development, but outside the scope of the overpass project. And so it would be a conversation, really, that would be part of our sidewalk maintenance and sidewalk extension plan that would be part of the CIP on an annual basis.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a good question because walking from this development, if they wanted to go to Wheeler Bagels, that's an incredible tight bridge there that's unsafe to really walk across. Even 2 cars going through, that's quite tight heading into town when you turn left onto Knob Creek there. I
Well,
take this every day.
Now,
so.
all of this along Knob Creek will
change,
be
of course.
improved with sidewalks and 5
Yes.
lanes as
Yes.
Brandon was talking about.
Yes.
But coming up Mountain View, beyond this point right here, it would just be a conversation as to when those sidewalk extensions or sidewalk, when those get rolled into the CIP.
So is it, like, for you, Mr. Peschel, so is it the city's policy or not, when the city does road improvements, if sidewalks aren't existing, do they put sidewalks in?
Yes. Yeah, we try to put 5-foot sidewalks wherever we have an improvement.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Has a traffic study been done on the impact of the overpass when it's completed, what that's going to do to traffic in that area?
Ooh, I believe so, but I have not looked at that.
Thanks, sir, appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
This is redundant, but I need to understand, will the road work be done before we begin this facility, or are we gonna have a backlog of traffic?
I believe that, no, they will probably not begin, they will not begin simultaneously. This one would begin first. But I also think that traffic is headed towards town instead of under the underpass. Most of it, like a majority of that would head the opposite direction, towards State of Franklin, towards taking Mountain View, out towards Browns Mill. But yes, there will be an increase in traffic in that interim period.
Whitney, I remember reading something in the information, the closest bus stop is somewhere, is it beyond the FBI office?
It is. It's rather far.
That's what I was going to say. Is there any plans to put it closer to that development since there's going to be so many?
I do not know. I did reach out to transportation. I've been starting to do that just to give them an opportunity to, comment. I haven't heard back yet, so I couldn't answer that question.
Okay.
I know, if I can piggyback on Timbers, I know we've asked developers in the past that have wanted to do a development similar to this, if they would be willing to, within that decel lane area, create a lane long enough for a school bus stop.
And the last time when we spoke about that last in Browns Mill,
Yeah.
that was not necessarily something that, at least for school buses, that they felt was particularly the best route. That
Okay.
sometimes pulling into the development or allowing for a turnaround can be a little safer. So I don't know that I would caution adding that to a motion.
Because cars would keep going on the left if the bus was pulled over,
I understand.
in likelihood.
Any other questions for staff?
In terms of buffers, is there a buffer required between the two properties?
No,
No.
because of the adjoining zoning districts.
Very good, thank you.
I guess the FBI is aware of this project occurring.
They were notified as well. Yes.
Okay.
How much participation did you have at the public meeting?
Just one person attended,
Okay.
Dr. Wild, and the applicant.
Okay. All right.
But I have gotten phone calls, and there is I do want to point out, there is a letter that a gentleman, he submitted a public input request due to a physical impairment, could not make the meeting, but wanted to make sure that his voice was known to you guys.
Thank you. Any other final questions for staff before we open for public comment?
I have just a comment.
Oh, sure, certainly.
There's going to be a lot of disruption in this area over the next 5 years. And so I would just appeal to our Public Works organization to take a good look at that and what the timing of things and you know, when will the 5 lanes be created? Is that after the interchange is worked on? But how much chaos is going to be out there that's going to affect traffic in all directions? Just a concern.
All right, I'm going to open the floor for public comment. And the first one I'll read into the record is the email that was received from Mr. James Rothley of 3 Carriage Court, and I'll read it into the record. The proposed 180-unit development at 2466 Knob Creek Road. As president of the Sterling Springs Homeowners Association, we object to this development as there have been many traffic backups on Knob Creek and Mountain View roads multiple times a day due to one-lane travel through the tunnel. Backups even back up past the FBI entrance on Knob Creek. So I'll put that into the record. Anyone here to speak to the topic? Raise your hand. Dr. Wild, you're welcome to come forward. If you could please state your name and address for the record.
Hey everyone, I'm Stacy Wild and it's 114 Surrey Lane. So I'm in Misbah Hills and I am very opposed to this rezoning. My primary reason, I have no objection to the multifamily. I think the proposal itself is very nice, but I don't think the existing infrastructure supports it. Until that Knob Creek Overpass project is completed, I think that the traffic nightmare that already exists is only going to be exacerbated by adding this to it. On my way here at 540, the traffic on Knob Creek was backed up past the FBI office, waiting to get through the underpass. In the mornings, I drop off a child every morning and return to my house, and at 8 o'clock in the morning, I have to wait to get through the underpass, and then I cannot take a left into Misbah Hills because the traffic on the other side is backed up almost up to Simmons Ridge. Looking at this by your own traffic counts, it suggests there would be about 1,780 trips a day generated. Even if retail went in right now, I don't think we'd have more than 2,000 trips. And it would not be all at the same time of day. It wouldn't all be in the morning and all in the afternoon again. So I really think it's more of an infrastructure issue that exists right now. It's not in opposition to the multifamily or anything else, but I don't think those people are going to be able to take, even if, as staff suggests, people are going to try to go into town, I don't think they'll be able to take a left-hand turn out of that to get onto Knob Creek to head into town at particular times a day. And I think the entrance off of Mountain View is entirely too close to the entrance of the adjacent multifamily housing project there too. So I just think we're going to have a huge traffic backup, and until that road is improved, it's really not appropriate to rezone this here. So I would love to see this development go in town. I just would like to see it go somewhere where it's appropriately zoned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else here to speak? Or make comments for the public? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the floor for public comment and to offer the floor amongst the commissioners to talk amongst ourselves and ask questions and discuss.
Is the developer here?
Is the developer here?
Okay.
Yes.
I would
Okay, I'm
have
going to
one
reopen the
question.
floor in case we have
Sorry.
questions for you. You okay with having questions?
Yes,
Could you
absolutely.
give us your name and address, please?
Angus Musser. I'm with Long Branch Development in Spartanburg, South Carolina.
Okay, thank you.
My question is, I mean, when you see what's getting ready to happen out there and the traffic concerns and construction disruption, as I called it a minute ago, do y'all have concerns about this with the traffic flow?
You know, I think that there may be some, you know, traffic problems in the beginning before the, you know, development of the road takes place. But I think that, you know, the way that we laid out the plan, that I really don't foresee massive issues with traffic. I think also, you know, our development would poses much less of a traffic risk or traffic impact than something that could be developed there by right today, like a shopping center or any other kind of business. So,
What, if you get through all the permitting and approvals, when would you see yourself opening for rentals?
I believe our schedule would be or at earliest late next year, so late 2022.
Will this be done in phases, or will you, one continuous project?
It would be one continuous project.
Yeah.
How long do you think the project will take to get it completed?
I would say about 10 to 12 months.
So we're into 2023 then, right?
Yes, I would say the project would not be fully complete until probably the end of 2023, maybe into early 2024.
And we could start the highway by then? Could?
We're good.
Could.
I mean, we could.
You know, it's almost like a chicken or egg thing. It's, you know, it's, and maybe one spurs the other one for a little quicker activity.
And I will say, you know, I drive this way every day, and I never have a problem. Once I pass under the underpass or the one-way bridge, I don't have an issue then. And if it's not, you know, rush hour, I'm okay. So, you know, it's hard to not approve something like this personally when we don't have data as to exactly the number of people that are going to be heading into town versus heading into Jonesboro and another location, which I feel like would be quite low, honestly. Having traveled this, you know, area daily, I feel like most of these people in this area are going to be heading into town, not deep into the community. And I have never hit significant traffic where it delayed my transit once I get through the bridge and I start hitting wheelers and lows. Those lights are very effective and efficient. You know, so yeah, that's my assessment on that.
The other,
Let me close. Do you any more questions for the developer?
How close, maybe you know this or maybe you don't, in terms of your ingress and egress from your particular facility to the facility north of you, is that more or less than 300 feet?
I am not aware of that off the top of my head.
Okay, I wouldn't expect you to know that anyway. That's,
Is it just gonna be 2 lanes coming into your development? Or are you gonna have like a turning lane, so if somebody wants to go right and somebody wants to go left, they could do that?
Right now, it's planned as just 2 lanes, one in and one out.
Okay, on both entrances?
Yes.
would it be a challenge to amend the plan to have that left turn, right turn capability out of the development?
I think we could probably accommodate that. You know, I would need to look at the easement language that is on our property or on the proposed property, with the FBI facility to see what we could change there, given that that connection is already in place. But since we're creating the new connection on Mountain View Road, I think that we could likely accommodate that there.
I think that would be a really good idea, because if, like Dr. Wild said, the traffic does get backed up, then at least it gives the resident an option to go another way,
Yeah.
you know, without having to sit there and wait.
Yeah.
Understood.
Has there been a traffic study done at all in terms of your flow out of this project into Knob Creek Road or Mountain View?
We have done, the city staff has done the preliminary traffic study, and we are going to, I believe, continue working on that study, but no, as of yet, there's not been a study done on traffic flow for, you know, where the residents would go out of the
Yeah.
community.
It seems to me that's kind of a cart before the horse deal, so I'm be curious to see if most of the people out of this project would actually go down Mountain View and then disperse the other roads. That's why the importance of a traffic study,
Yeah.
and ignore the Knob Creek Road intersection. If I were living there, that's the way I'd go into town. And
Yeah.
get back around by Walmart or wherever.
That's right. Yeah, and Dr.
But,
Wild is not exaggerating at all. It backs all the way up to the FBI building. One thing that would be good, a data point that would be nice to know if y'all could present this, you know, throughout another meeting, would be how long is the traffic backed up to the entrance of this? Is it 20 minutes during rush hour? Is it 45? That's a really important data point.
Yeah, we can get that.
Okay.
I have one more question for Ms. Hodges.
Certainly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you know, and you may not know the answer to this, the traffic study or the traffic engineer that looked at this and the number of trips that would come out, do you know if they considered this new development that's going in, not this one, but the one we approved last week? Because
That is just a comparative table of what, it is not a actual traffic study. It's just taking traffic data and saying, this is what could happen on this site.
For units
Not
per trip?
and not necessarily a compounding of what is in the
Multiple
area.
facilities.
Yes.
So we do have this other project that's going to be going on just right, almost adjacent to it. I think it would really be good if Public Works could do a more thorough study of this area, because, I mean, there's still vacant land out there too. We could be really creating a bottleneck here.
I'll get with
Now-
them.
Now, again, I say that, but on B4, a shopping center could go in tomorrow. So, but I think we all need to get coordinated here, particularly with the city helping out however we can to improve traffic flow.
All right, let me ask one more time. Does there any other public comment from the floor?
Hey, Jenny, is there any-
I'm going to close the public comment. Thank you very much. Okay, we
Can I
can
ask
talk amongst
Whitney,
ourselves.
can I ask Whitney another question?
Certainly.
I know you mentioned there was no buffers, but is there not going to be anything to separate the FBI from that entrance? Because I know they're pretty particular about that.
They would have had to buffer for their site because this is an RP3.
Okay.
That's a lower intensity to a higher intensity. So, and because it was all it was all the same zoning at some point, they wouldn't have had to buffer. But if they would like to continue to add plantings or things like that, that is certainly in their purview.
I got you. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion amongst us?
I'm good.
Any other questions for staff?
Yeah, I'm really sympathetic to the need for us to have more housing, especially affordable housing. But I do have some really concerns regarding just the traffic infrastructure here. And I kind of agree with what Commissioner Brock mentioned of just getting some more information from the city regarding what is the traffic planning going to be. Do we have any kind of a better idea of what the trips would be per day on this? Do we have any idea of, you know, when this project would actually get started and finished? And I don't know, I would feel more comfortable if I had more information from the city regarding what this future looks like than I do right now.
And I would echo that too, but I think I felt a little bit better, knowing that they're not even gonna start the project until the end of 2022.
Yeah.
And then, you know, probably finish it, I think he said the end of 23 or maybe even into 24. I feel much, much better. If they were gonna start it tomorrow, I would have grave concerns. But, you know, hopefully by then, we might have the start of a nice new highway there that's gonna improve the whole thing. So, I mean, it's tough right now. I mean, definitely.
Yeah, and I would agree, Dr. Whitfield. I've kind of made the case, you know, for real concerns. However, we will not stop development on that piece of property. So it will be, and it could, you know, if this doesn't go through, it could be something else in a month's time. So I think I'm going to vote in favor of it tonight because it will go on to City Commission, and in the meantime, we can get with Public Works and see what we can do to have a better understanding of what the dynamics are out there in the next 12 months, and then see what we can do.
I move to close discussion.
I think Preston wanted to say something.
Okay, we have a motion to close the discussion.
Oh,
I'll
I'm
make
ready
a
to ask
motion to
Jenny
close.
something.
I'm sorry,
I would like to ask Jenny something.
go ahead.
Jenny, you talked about another project and possible others in this same area. I think it's important that we make sure they're coordinated. You know, that we're not just spot here and there. And I agree with your assessment about there should have been traffic study done before we got this far with it. Because that is a backup place for sure, if you've ever been there and caught in it. On Knob Creek, and I can only imagine what the people are gonna go through if we don't coordinate this very well.
All right, we've got a motion on the floor to close discussion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor of closing discussion, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
No,
I oppose.
I oppose. But we lost.
We lost.
Okay. So do we have a motion?
I have a comment.
I'll reopen the floor for a comment.
No, I'm kidding.
You
I
made
do,
it hard for me.
I do have a comment, but I'll make it later.
We should be able to comment at any time.
I'll make a motion to approve the rezoning. Is there anything I needed to add to that? Make a motion to approve the rezoning.
Second the motion.
Okay. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Bailey,
No.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Oceanbine,
Yes.
Commissioner Pavlich.
Yes.
Commissioner Rhodey,
No.
Vice Chairman Whitfield,
Yes.
Chairman Dagenhart.
No.
Okay, motion is approved as presented.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, next topic on the agenda, final plat of the cottages at Greenwood. Preston, I think you're gonna present for staff?
I am going to fill in for Mr. Ryder on the next three items. Yes, the next three items. He is enjoying some well-deserved time off. And so, so I realize my presentation skills are not as smooth as his, but we will get through this. I'm going to go over here to so we're starting here with, this is final plat for Cottages at Greenwood Phase 2B. Allow me to pull up all of, so here on the screen, you've got, you'll see here along the bottom, this is Greenwood Drive, entering here into Willow Springs Drive. On the right-hand side, this property that you can see is clearly under construction from all the dirt. This is Cottages at Greenwood. It's really a two-phase, but it's a turning out to be a three-phase development. The first phase were these lots that front directly onto Willow Springs Drive. Those of you who were on the board at the time may recall when the entire preliminary plat came through, and then that first final plat came through for Phase 1. Phase 1, again, had these lots that faced onto Willow Springs Drive and did not involve any new street construction. Phase 2 was split into Phase 2A and 2B. 2A came up from Willow Springs Drive on Wanderlust and then made the right here on Thread Lane to these lots back here. That was 2A. And you have recently approved the final plat for Phase 2A. And so what they are asking for now is final plat approval for Phase 2B. That is this section of lots that reach back to the left here. So you'll see that Mr. Ryder provided a staff report and some supporting information for you. Leading all the way up till today, they were working feverishly to get the right-of-way improvements and other horizontal improvements complete, at least those that are required before you can consider the final plat. If you recall, there are a number of infrastructure improvements that can be bonded, and so those infrastructure improvements, again, working all the way up till today, our Public Works inspection team, they were out there today working closely with the developer, trying to get that bond amount down and ensure that the minimum improvements were done. And so I can report now here at almost 7 o'clock that the minimum requirements are done, meaning that the road binder, the road bed essentially is down, and all of those minimum requirements have been met. The things that can be bonded are things like sidewalks, the stabilization of the stormwater devices, installation of sidewalks, other items like that, presentation of the as-built drawings. Those are things that can be bonded. And so again, they did meet the minimum requirements. The final plat is consistent with the preliminary plat. There's no change there, and the bond amount as of about 2 hours ago is $120,700. And so I don't personally have it on me, but in my conversation with, there it is. Here is the bond check for $120,700, or I believe maybe $120,500. And so they have met that obligation. Staff recommends approval as you have in front of you there.
Thank you very much.
Preston, can you speak on the deviation variance, please?
Yes, thank you. My apologies. You'll see here in Mr. Ryder's report that as was requested for Phase 1 and 2A, the developer is asking the same request for Phase 2B, and that is that the side yard, yes, that the side yard drainage and utility easements that normally make a donut around each new lot, but that the side yard drainage and utility easements be reduced from 7.5 feet to 5 feet for all lots in this phase. You've already granted that for Phases 1 and 2A, and this would be completion here of the whole development for Phase 2B. You may recall that when we brought Phase 2 before you as a preliminary, because of the conversation that was had during Phase 1, there was conversation, do we just go ahead and at the preliminary phase grant that variance, grant that deviation? And engineering said, no, please don't do that, because at the preliminary stage, they have yet to do final engineering. And so Water and Sewer, Travis Olinger, and our engineering folks said, you know, not having engineered drawings in hand at the preliminary stage, we really feel uncomfortable you all granting that that deviation, that 2.5 foot deviation. But when the engineering plans come in, they're able to confirm location of water and sewer lines, confirm easement locations, all of that, then they can make an informed recommendation. And so for all three phases, and then now for this one, engineering and water and sewer have no problem with the deviation.
Did we hear from fire on this? Did They
They are part of the review process, and they would have had to have signed off on Wanderlust Court as well as the T here at the end.
Would they have signed off on the deviation?
No, because they wouldn't be impacted by that deviation. That's strictly for drainage and utility. If you are, maybe, I want to be careful not to presume, but if you're thinking about fire code issues, fire code will still have to be met. Those separations between buildings still have to be met through the building permit process.
Preston, what's going on there on that corner, where the road goes, but then there's like a little triangle
Sure.
area?
Let me see here. I've got one that's zoomed in a little bit further.
Seems like we've talked about this before.
This right here.
Yeah.
So that is a part of the right-of-way. It will actually be public right-of-way. It will be maintained by the HOA. You can see there's a note right here. So the homeowners association will maintain that portion, and it also acts as access point to the open space. So there is a access point right here in this corner that will grant access to the open space. But it just is, it happened that way because this particular builder, the developer, the land developer is a different entity than the home builder. Sometimes when it's the same, they will be more flexible in their lot configuration. But this particular home builder, D.R. Horton, really prefers and expects out of their land developers that all of their lots be as rectangular as possible, or as geometrically appropriate. They really try to avoid misshapen lots. And so in a situation like this where the road is curving, you would have had some little bit of a conflict here with these 4 lots. And so what this does is this just opens up the right-of-way, creates 4 nice rectangular lots, and there's an agreement that the HOA will maintain that.
Preston,
Okay,
can you?
thank you.
Sorry, excuse me. Can you back out on that image, or did you have an image that showed more of the phase 1, 2, 2A?
Sure.
and 2B?
Yeah, I can go back to that one.
Are there open spaces on the earlier phases?
Yes. Yes,
Can you
there.
point those out?
There is an overall open space requirement, and so they have met that. But they are identified in each of the different phases. These 2 big tracks right here are the BMP devices, or the stormwater devices. So there's one right here and one right here. Those are the 2 stormwater devices. And then this piece right here is part of the open space for 2A. And then I believe this back here is also part of the open space for phase 2A. And then you'll see here what's in hatched is open space for 2B, which includes this square right here. And then the open space, there's less open space in phase 1 simply because those are just lots platted off of Willow Springs Drive. And the bulk of the stormwater devices were right off of Willow Springs Drive.
Is there an expressed intent of what those open spaces will look like when the development's completed?
They will not be active open spaces. They will be green spaces, but there was no plan at the preliminary stage that they would be planned or designed in a way that they could be activated. That's absolutely part of the conversation. There's Peyton right there. One of the things that we're so excited about with Peyton coming on board is our ability to begin tackling some of these policy initiatives, and that's one of the policy initiatives on your goal set, is looking at our open space requirements. And Peyton has a particular expertise and interest in that, and so we look forward to jumping on that.
Can we go back to the variance, the deviation?
Yes, ma'am.
I can see where they've requested to go from 7.5 feet. We've established that in policy, to a variance of 5 feet. Why are they requesting this? I don't see any justification for it. Why do they need it to be 5
Well,
feet instead of 7.5?
there's a couple of things to consider here. It's easy to treat or to consider, I guess, the drainage and utility easement the same as a building setback, and it's not. I mean, yes, you can't have a structure in that, but it's not acting as a setback. Meaning, if the drainage and utility easement was not a requirement in the subregs, the zoning code, which the development standards in this particular zoning district have no side yard setback. So there is zero setback in the side yard. It's that the subdivision regulations have this additional drainage and utility easement. And so it's actually not unusual to ask for the drainage and utility easement to be modified, shrunken, if the engineering department and the water sewer department have already reviewed and approved construction plans, meaning we know where the lines are. We know where the sewer lines have gone. We know where the water lines have gone. We know where the stormwater lines have gone. And so if those lines have been approved and then they're under construction, what remains are drainage and utility easements that are there just in case. And so generally what happens is then water and sewer and engineering, which looks at it from a stormwater perspective, will say, is it going to create a problem for us if we reduce these side yard drainage and utility easements by 2.5 feet down to make 2 5-foot, meaning a 10-foot easement? Are we still going to be able to in the future, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years down the road, if we have a drainage issue in here, are we going to have enough land to be able to go in there and put in some kind of a device? And so that's how they consider it. And generally, they would recommend against that pinch or against that reduction if they feel that there's going to be a problem in the future. But as they look at the plans, they say, no, reducing it by 2.5 feet, which still leaves us 10 feet between homes, should be adequate. But again, it is important to note that that 7.5 feet is not equivalent to a side yard setback. There is no setback in this particular zoning district. Does that help?
A little bit.
Okay.
Can you expound on the sewer request to have language for a private sewer pump?
That's on a different plat.
Oh, am I
That's on the
wrong one?
Miller plat.
Sorry.
That's all right. That one's next, though.
Oh,
Any more questions for staff?
I didn't get a recommendation.
I have
Did I get a recommendation?
an issue with reducing the amount of distance, primarily because when you talk about 5 feet from the property line, a lot of builders will ignore the overhangs unless we have good enforcement or have something on the plat that everybody's aware that the residential building code is in force. It might get ignored and be a future fire problem. The drainage easement is really immaterial because it's going to be hard to get a piece of equipment down topography in 10 feet. And if there is a future line to be put in, it'd have to be done by a ditch witch or something, which is possible. So that part doesn't bother me, but the separation between buildings, as we get more and more of these tiny lots, not that these are tiny because these are a little bit better than what we've been seeing, that we start having fire separation issues, that they won't adhere to the 1 hour protection questions of the code, particularly in terms of overhangs, which need to be protected if they encroach on that 5 feet. So I printed some things out, just I got comments from Dave McClellan because I wanted to see how they enforced it, and he thinks that they can enforce it, but most builders don't watch what they're doing and may not get a surveyor, and the inspector is not going to go out there and measure it. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to pass out my research here on both of these items so that we have it available.
Hetty, could you, please, thank you.
Yeah, if you
And you got one for the record?
got one for the record and one of each of those.
Are these going to be the
It's just
same
that
kind of homes?
Fire separation gets to be a
Yes, ma'am.
continuous problem. And we've got a townhouse project coming up next, so I think we've had that. The townhouse project
if they're abiding by the townhouse regulations from the state of Tennessee, that's fine, with the 2 exits, one out the front and one out the back, and partitions, then they don't have to have sprinklers, which is fine. I hope that will work, but I just continue to see the lots getting smaller and smaller. And I think that's the same point I made on the Austin Springs project last meeting or before when we had it.
That's before, okay.
Sometimes people don't watch what they're doing, and they're putting a lot of windows in and not have rated walls.
Right.
And so that's my concern, but I want to give everybody some information.
Huey, are you in the microphone?
I think so. It's right here.
Oh.
Want me to speak louder?
There's a lot of
My wife
bulletproof
always says
between
I'm
us.
mumbling too much. I'll get closer to it. This is not, I'm not trying to create controversy, but I'd like to have something on the plat that relates to, look at the code, the residential code for that section, and make sure that we're not ignoring a potential problem. It could be just a note on the plat, so that everybody who gets a plat sees, hey, my builder, you better watch out, because this is not going to be the same builder all the time. It may or may not be, but if there's another builder coming in, he just ignores stuff. So from an architectural point of view, I have grave concerns about reducing it. That's basically all I have to say.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff before I open the floor? Okay, I'm going to open the floor for public comment. Anyone here related to this project would like to speak to it, in favor or against? If you'll please give me your name and address for the record.
George Smith, 367 Hog Hollow Road. I represent the developer. I'm the Director of Engineering. D.R. Horton, the national builder that's building on these, everything you see in brown on the screen that's disturbed area now has either a completed home or a home that's being framed. The pads are already in. Their houses do not have overhangs on the sides. They do them front and rear. What he's talking about and the variance we're asking for is for a drainage easement. You're required by building code to meet fire code. So the separations are designed into their pads. When we build a pad, are those 40?
I think they're 40-foot lots.
40-foot lots. So that they'll build their 30-foot model on it. They'll bring out a drone. They'll map the whole lot, and then they'll precisely place their foundation pads on those sites. So they're surveyed before and after. Basically, we do an as-built that shows them. So fire code wise, we should be good.
Okay. Being good is fine. You may be the perfect builder and developer, but if the property is passed on to another builder and developer, that's our concern, because the plat's going to be recorded and it's going to be approved.
Sure.
And so those are my concerns.
Okay. Just to say again, that, do you know when the first preliminary plat was sent in? Less than
For the whole development?
for phase one. I'm trying to remember.
2018, 2019, no, late 2019.
And so it sat idle for a long time. And then Landstar, All Phase, the developers that picked it up from the subdivision, went in and laid it back out for D.R. Horton stuff. They've already contracted to buy those lots and build on those lots. And every one that they're building currently in phase 2A is already sold. So I don't think there'll be another builder.
It's a
if that
question of
helps address your
awareness.
concern.
I want to make sure your builder is aware that the city is going to look real hard at the drainage easement, quote, setback, in terms of overhangs, for example, that they don't get encroached. That's the only problem I have with it.
Yeah, I think the way they're actually doing it satisfies the issue you have. So I'm pretty sure we're good that way. I'd answer another question if you have one, or try to.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else here to speak to the issue? All right, I'm going to close public comment and open the floor amongst the commission to talk and ask questions of each other or make comments. Or hear a motion.
I'll make a motion to go ahead and approve the final plat for the cottages at Greenwood Phase 2B.
Do we need to include the variance in that?
You would.
Need to what?
Include the variance statement.
Okay, and include the variance from 7.5 to 5?
To 5. And then just for, may not be required, but if you would also go ahead and approve the bond amount of $120,500.
Yeah, what he said.
Thank you.
To include.
I second the motion.
Okay.
Smoky.
Motion and a second. Do we need to read the motion back?
I will, yes. It's a motion to approve as presented with the deviation variance of the side yard drainage and utility easements reduced to 5 feet from 7.5 feet, with also approval of a bond for $120,500.
All right, thank you. All right, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Bailey,
Yes.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Oshenbein,
Yes.
Commissioner Pavlich,
Yes.
Commissioner Rhodey,
No.
Vice Chairman Whitfield,
Yes.
Chairman Dagenhart.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you very much. All right, now we'll go on to item number 3, the Miller property replat.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This item, final plat request placed on the agenda also by Mr. Ryder. You'll see that he provided backup material, and I will just, using that as reference, note that the proposed lots meet all requirements of the Johnson City subregs. City water and sewer are provided to the properties, and as Commissioner Pavlich had noted, the installation of a private sewer pump might be required to provide sewer to Lot 1RA, which is this lot right here. Now, you may have seen in your iCompass backup material that at the time that it was placed by Mr. Ryder, he noted staff recommends approval of the final plat contingent upon that note being added, and so I can confirm for you that that note has been added, and the plat was uploaded, I believe it was yesterday. So that has been completed, and so at this point, the recommendation would simply be to approve. For just reference sake, to kind of get you in the general vicinity, you'll see here, this is People Street. I'm sorry. Am I off? No. Yes, People Street and Avonlea Drive. This is at the bottom of the hill here, just down from goodness gracious, the new senior living facility,
Everlawn.
Everlawn, thank you. Yes, just down the hill from Everlawn. And if you made a right here, it turns into Browns Mill. Browns Mill, you may recall the rezoning request just up Browns Mill. So this is here at the intersection of Browns Mill, Peoples, and Avonlea. And you can see the properties, as they're currently platted, are in yellow. And so you'll see here that what they're doing is they are carving up this parcel and creating these lots. And again, as noted by Mr. Ryder, meet all code requirements, and the note has been added.
I thought the city had a policy against private sewer, or, yeah. No?
No, the sewer is still going to be public, but there may be
I mean, they're gonna be on septic. Is that what that means, or just,
No.
we're gonna pump it up to the
No,
street?
they would need to pump it up to sewer.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Public sewer, but there may be a
Private pump. I got it.
deviation in elevation.
I got it. Thank you. Is everything in a circle a sinkhole?
No, those are identifying, I believe, those are identifying, you can see here where it indicates 25-year and 100 years. So those may be identifying, well, I want to stop short. Is the surveyor here in the room for this one? Nope, okay.
I was just curious. I don't
Yeah.
think it matters. But I thought they were all sinkholes.
Any other questions for staff?
So is it risky?
right, I'm going to open the floor for public comment. Is anyone here related to this project like to speak to it? All right, I'm going to close the floor. Any discussion or more discussion?
Mr. Mitchell, is any of these replatted areas have a house on it or anything now? Is it all blank?
You can see the aerial underneath, and no, ma'am, I do not believe.
So it doesn't go up as far as the farmhouse and the barn that's right on around the corner?
I wouldn't be able to answer that question, but I'd be happy to get out of this and pull up an aerial photograph.
That's okay.
That's the church. Is that the white part
This
there?
is
That's the
Harrison Church of Christ.
It's what?
Harrison Church of Christ.
Yes, okay.
On the corner there, of Peoples and Avonlea.
And just to follow up to what Mr. Pavlich was saying, the civil engineering have come out and had this property assessed for sinkholes and that.
Yes, they
Far as
would
you
have
know.
had, well, the surveyor would have identified those.
Okay, any more conversation about it? Comments? Do I hear a motion?
Jamie, would that change your decision based off of those sinkholes?
The only thing that's running in my mind is there any liability on the city's part to approve the plat if there is the risk of I mean, is there any liability if we would say yes to the city for us?
Well, I
In
mean,
terms of if it's all sinkholes and,
ultimately, that's going to be an answer that really only Ms. Sandos can provide. But just in my experience, no, because the lots that they are creating lots that are of a size that there are portions of the lot that can be built upon outside of any sinkhole. So if these
so I think that's what that is.
if these depressions identified on the plat are in fact sinkholes, you can see here that Lot 4, you can build in this area right in here. On Lot 2, you'd be able to build in this area right in here. Lot 3, you'll see is unimpeded. And then Lot 1RA is also roughly unimpeded except for this back area. So if they were creating lots that were fully encumbered, then I think it'd be a different conversation.
Okay, I was just making sure we don't have any due diligence on our part.
No, not that I'm aware of. And again, there are buildable portions of each lot outside of those identified areas.
Thanks, sir.
Would that not be addressed when permits are being sought?
Absolutely.
If we know. So back to your question, Ben, there definitely are sinkholes out in that area. They're all over town. I mean,
Yeah.
we have
Yeah.
them, but the knowledge of the buyer that they're there. So, and we couldn't tell from this little plat right here if any have been identified. You've got these circles, and I guess that's what kind of triggered the question.
Those are sinkholes that are identified there, and it says it on the plat and the plat note that there are visible sinkholes.
Oh, okay.
And we do have a sinkhole ordinance, so that does regulate development around sinkholes, so that's what they've done. So identified the 25-year and the 100-year, so.
Thank you for doing that. Appreciate the information.
Is there any concern from water or sewer on this?
No,
Sinkholes?
no, I mean, they would have had to have, we would not have put it on the agenda if it was not approved. For example, on the last one, I was getting confirmation from Mr. Olinger on Cottages at Greenwood up all the way until about 5:15, so.
Make a motion to approve.
Second?
And we've got a motion and a second to approve the plat of the Miller property.
Do we need to
Call the roll,
include the
please.
sewer, private sewer in the motion?
No, it has been, the note has
It's on
been
the-
added.
Would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Bailey,
Yes.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Oshinbain,
Yes.
Commissioner Pavlich.
Yes.
Commissioner Rhodey,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Whitfield,
Yes.
and Chairman Dagenhart.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Let's move on to number 4, the right-of-way dedication. Mr. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well,
69 degrees.
it is 69 degrees, and there looks like some delicious tomato soup. How do I make this go away? There we go. Oh, my. Apparently I was going to go to the web and everything. All right. This is a final plat, but the action of this final plat is requesting right-of-way dedication. So this has been a little bit of a funny situation here. Rocky Top Road runs parallel to I-26. Here we are in the south part of the city. And so this is I-26 coming around the bend of Buffalo. And Rocky Top Road runs north off of Mayflower. Thank you, ma'am. You may recall there was a rezoning which involved a 5-lot concept plan there at the corner of Rocky Top and Mayflower that Ms. Hodges handled several months back. So Rocky Top Road extends north from Mayflower, and it really is largely encompassed by the TDOT right-of-way, by the interstate right-of-way. However, that state right-of-way ends right here at this angled line. So keep that in mind. That's the first little chunk of data. This property up here is involved in a land sale for the relocation of Harmonize, which will be part of the Walnut Street reconstruction. And so in order for this land deal to go through, this property is all owned by Charles Smith, by the Smith family. They are selling these lots up here to Harmonize. They're going to retain this lot right here. And as part of this land deal, Mr. Smith is going to cut off or create a kind of a flag stem here on his lot that extends the Harmonize lot down to this point right here. So if you were to look at this in the future, the yellow line would come across and then would come up like this to make a flag stem granting access to Harmonize. You'll see that they chose this location because if you can see through the plat, you'll see where the asphalt stops. The asphalt and the concrete change right here. So that's the proposal as part of the land deal. Well, that left us a gap because if Mr. Smith was going to sell all the way down to this point, then Mr. Smith was going to maintain ownership of this. And so we needed to close this gap somehow because the Harmonize property was going to stop here. Now, some asked, well, why wouldn't the Harmonize just buy all the way down to this point? You know, now we're getting into the complexities of the land deal. And for whatever reason, Mr. Smith did not want to sell all the way down to this point. He wanted to sell down to this point to maintain some access and or frontage here along 26, and so he has agreed to sell down to this point. So the request is to dedicate the necessary right-of-way right in this area right here from this angled line up to this point right here. And so that's the action of this final plat, is to dedicate that amount of right-of-way that would and it would become seamless with the remaining portion of the right-of-way. It doesn't appear as though there is right-of-way, for example, coming across this lot right here, but it has been confirmed by the surveyor, Tim Lingerfelt, who has handled this project, that our parcel lines are not accurate to the current survey lines, current TDOT right-of-way lines. And so please do not pay too much attention to our current parcel lines in this area. The surveyor has confirmed otherwise. So that's the request. The only thing I would add is that all the way up until, again, about 5:30, we were meeting with Phil Pinzola, the Public Works Director, and there is a request that a note be added to the plat that an easement would need to be negotiated with Mr. Smith on his property, roughly in this area, and the exact location is not known, nor is it has it been specified by Mr. Pinzola. In other words, we're open to working with Mr. Smith as to exactly what that looks like, how big it is, but that there would need to be an easement identified on his property to allow for someone to be able to turn around. And so if you are in favor of this right-of-way dedication, your approval would just need to be contingent on a note being added to the plat that the appropriate easement be provided. Thank you.
Okay, questions for staff?
If Mr. Smith wasn't willing to sell that piece of right-of-way or include that in the land swap, how difficult is it gonna be for us to, how would we even approach that? Say, all right, we need an additional 7 feet on your land, or 15 feet, whatever that number is.
Right, that's a conversation we have yet to have, but we do need for the right-of-way dedication to move forward. And if Mr. Smith rejects that particular situation, then we're back to square one and we'll need to figure that out. But
So should we put a contingency on the dedication? Or does it matter?
So, I mean, once we dedicate it, it's done. I mean,
Yeah,
how do you withdraw it?
Contingent
Well,
on,
that's what I'm saying. I would agree with you.
okay.
We should.
So you're saying you make a motion perhaps to do the dedication only if these conditions are met? Is that what
Contingent
you're
upon
thinking?
The easement.
the easement
The
from-
easement.
that the city and or the lands. I'm
The
not
landowner
complicating
receives
it.
an easement?
well, the only thing I would suggest, and this is a little bit of a unique situation here, is that a new public street is not being constructed. We know that the amount of development at the end of Rocky Top Road is limited to really what you have on the screen there. And so, so I think this is a little bit of a unique situation in that the mandate to have a T turnaround or a Y or a cul-de-sac is of less importance than you would have in a subdivision or some other type situation. So I don't suggest that if Mr. Smith is not willing to do the easement, I would not suggest that the approval be revoked. It's a request that Public Works is making. Would he be willing to grant the easement? But if not, I don't think it's the end of the world.
So we don't have to worry about any type of water, sewer, electrical lines, anything like that?
No.
It's just land.
And there's not a fence there entering into his property there. So
There's a
someone could
fence
turn
right
around
now.
there, but
There's a
not-
fence right
but not
now
where
right
the new
here.
fence is going to drop down.
Correct, and so,
Yeah.
well, we presume
Yeah.
that Harmonize will
Would
move
do
that
that.
fence down.
Yeah.
And that there would probably be a fence along this side. And so the ask to Mr. Smith is can you push that back a little bit?
Because it's already concrete there.
Give us a little bit of space to have a turnaround in here. Again, that's a great question. There's no utility considerations or constraints. It's really trying to provide an option for someone to turn around, especially if it's a larger vehicle, recognizing that if that's not granted, there is limited development happening back here in this area. Really, it would just be Harmonize and whatever Mr. Smith has going on in there.
Is this approximately 100 feet?
This new section right here,
That section that you were just talking about seating.
it's a
right away.
little bit over 100 feet.
So it's somewhere around 100.
Right, right.
Where do our garbage trucks turn around now?
I don't know. That would be a Public Works question. Do we provide public sanitation to industrial or are those private pickups? Yeah, that would be a Andy Best maybe question, but,
It's in the city.
right, I just don't know whether or not, forgive me, I'm going off of some of my old history. Cities don't always pick up everything. Sometimes some of it's contracted, but maybe we do. I don't know.
Well, now you've got Harmonize going out there. So what are their need? Where are the utility lines right now?
Well, they're in various locations. Oh, Travis left. I can confirm for you that water and sewer to the proposed Harmonize facility actually has all their services coming off of Plymouth Road. So we did confirm that. That was in conversation with Mr. Peterson, that those access points are off of Plymouth. These are coming off of, I believe, down here where Rocky Top ends, where the right-of-way ends.
So the easement will be no more than just physical.
Correct.
All right, is there anyone here for public comment? I'm opening the floor. Okay, please come forward with your name and address and let us hear from you.
My name is Tim Lingerfeld. I'm with Alley and Associates from Kingsport. I'm representing Mr. Smith in this matter for the dedication of the right-of-way. The only reason I desire to speak to it is to respectfully request that you approve the dedication as presented and not get entangled in the easement that has come about in the 11th hour that has yet to be defined, as this gentleman just spoke to. That's really all I have to say unless you have a question for me.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'm gonna close the floor. Allow us to talk amongst ourselves if we'd like to.
Jenny, what was your comment about once the dedication is made, as is presented here? We
Can't
can't,
undo it.
we can't change. we
Oh,
can't-
once the city commission makes the final decision.
Right.
Then it's a done deal, yeah.
So it
this
goes
is
to
just,
you
this is
next.
just advising the commission on the review, and it'll go forward. I don't know if this is a 3 reading, is this 3 reading or just 1?
No, this would just stop here.
Oh, this
Oh,
does stop
okay.
here.
This is
All right,
just
doesn't
a
go to the
plat.
city commission.
Right.
Oh,
That kind of rules my thought
yeah.
process.
I'm a little more confused after you got up and said what you said.
Yeah, I didn't understand it either.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Please,
Sure.
Yes, please. I'll
please,
reopen
please
the floor.
clarify.
I was in conversation on Thursday with Pete Peterson about this and some other folks that were in the room. I was on the telephone, so I could not physically see who was in the room. The only voice I recognized was Mr. Peterson. He and I have been friends for many years. The spirit of the conversation relative to this dedication was to dedicate the area as we have described it, and this gentleman spoke to, and it be dedicated as is. At no point in time in that conversation, up until late yesterday afternoon, was there ever any mention of any kind of additional easement for turning area or anything else. So, and we were asked to hustle this plat together and get it here so that it could be presented at tonight's meeting. It was only approved just a few hours before I left Kingsport to come to this meeting. And I have the signed documents. I just had Mr. Smith sign before the meeting started. So I'm totally taken back by the although I understand it from a planning perspective. Please don't misunderstand. I don't mean to be disrespectful to you in any way. But I'm taken back by the fact that it seems to be an obstacle at this point in time. I greatly wish that I had had the opportunity to discuss that matter with Mr. Peterson before I came and spoke before you to have a better understanding of it. But my understanding was, do exactly what we did, present it tonight, and hopefully it would be approved. That was what my understanding was.
What did you do? Because I haven't seen it. What did you do other than asking us to grant you land?
We surveyed the area for the right-of-way dedication.
Okay, so that's what your onus was?
Yes,
to
sir.
do this. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Is this a time-sensitive information? Do you need more time with Mr. Peterson to work out this easement issue?
Well, I will say this, and I'll let this gentleman have this floor back, but I will say that this is a integral part of the relocation of Mr. Harmon's facility because the city is purchasing wherever he currently is because of another project. And because of the way that Mr. Smith wanted to manage the deal, if this part doesn't go through, it basically stops the deal with Mr. Harmon. And I understand the city's wanting him out of the other building. It's going to take him a little time to get this one done to get moved in. So that's just my understanding. That's all I know. And that's the best information I can provide you. I wish I could answer in greater depth than that, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So, one final question. Was the easement issue brought up to Mr. Smith and he rejected
No,
that?
ma'am, no, ma'am. I can reasonably tell you with almost 100% surety that Mr. Smith does not have any knowledge of any turnaround easement unless someone has called him, because he didn't mention it to me in the parking lot this evening when we signed the plats.
Did you
Person,
know?
correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought you said that just came up, like, right before this meeting, that Mr. Penzola mentioned it to you about the
That's what I'm
easement.
saying. To my knowledge, no one had called Mr. Smith and said, this needs to be
Right.
added or discussed or whatever, to my knowledge, because he didn't make any mention when he was signing the plats earlier.
But he's already rejected the idea of granting the easement already to Harmonize, right?
Let me clarify what you just said. You said that I rejected it?
No,
No.
He rejected it, yes, sir.
So he rejected the,
He didn't reject this turnaround perspective that we're speaking to. He rejected not selling Harmonize all the way out to the TDOT right-of-way on Rocky Top Road. And he has 50 feet on the TDOT right-of-way at Rocky Top Road as well. So he could have done that. And I wish that the mapping, the gentleman spoke to it very aptly, I wish that the mapping was more correct so you all had a better understanding of how the property lines are on the orthographic photo. But this particular area is exceptionally poor.
is Mr. Harmon's representative here by chance?
I am Mr. Harmon's
Okay,
representative.
so does he have access to his property?
He will if this is
If
dedicated.
we grant the.
Yes, sir.
That's all.
This will give him legal access, yes, sir.
You're not Mr. Smith's
No, ma'am.
representative? Okay.
No, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, I am Mr. Smith's representative as well. Mr. Smith, I was hired by Mr. Harmon to do the project, okay? And when this came about the way that Mr. Smith wanted the road and the access for Mr. Harmon's property, then it became to the point to where the discussion with Mr. Peterson happened about the dedication of the road. At that point in time, because of time and the fact that I had already been on the project, Mr. Smith hired me to complete the dedication. So I'm actually working for both parties.
Mr. Mitchell, I didn't catch in the beginning when you were making your introduction. Have you talked to Mr. Peterson about this?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So, yes, I was in Mr. Peterson's conference room on that phone call. So I was one of those people. Just since it's now been brought up, the individuals in that room were Shannon Castillo, Pete Peterson, myself, and and Monty Honeycutt. And so Mr. Lingerfeld is everything he said is accurate about how that conversation occurred. I don't really want to get into a he said, she said, but I was in the room and we did discuss the fact that there may be issues with having a turnaround or the lack of a turnaround. Now, it was not resolved, so I will confirm that it remained unresolved, but that was discussed. What happens if we have this right-of-way that just deadheads like this? And that was discussed.
Okay.
And so he is also correct that the plat came in. We've tried to provide excellent customer service in this particular situation by rushing this item. It literally came to my attention, goodness, what's today? Today is Tuesday. End of last week, or middle of last week, pardon me, and before I left to go to a conference. And so we agreed to rush and get this on the agenda. Mr. Penzola has been out for 2 weeks. He just got back. So I was out Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of last week. Mr. Penzola was out for several weeks. And so this conversation now caught up pretty rapidly. And so I don't disagree that the conversation occurred in Mr. Peterson's office. The subdivision regulations are your subdivision regulations. And Mr. Penzola, in conversation with him at 5:30 today, asked that that note be added. He realized that asking that that note be added had not yet been vetted by Mr. Smith. And so that's why my response back to you, Commissioner Pavlich, was that's the ask.
Okay.
But we would recommend that you grant the dedication, and if the easement's not okay by Mr. Smith, that we still let it move forward.
That's fine. I guess my biggest question is for whatever reason, if I'm worried about access to the lot that Harmonize will be on in the future, without the rest of it, will he have access to his lot?
With this dedication, he will have legal access.
He will have legal, that's the only thing I've been trying to clarify, that he has legal access to
He will
his
have
lot.
legal access with that dedication.
Thank you.
Mr. Mitchell, are there other examples in the city where you have really kind of no other community needs on the other side and you have an easement that's not in place?
Yes. And so I think that's why Public Works, specifically Mr. Penzola, did not have an issue with, if Mr. Smith turns down the request to have an additional easement to turn around, it's really not the end of the world. We have other deadheaded streets in the city.
Okay.
The subdivision regulations are crystal clear that when you're building a new street, if you're building a dead-end street, a known dead-end street, then you need to provide the appropriate turnaround.
Yeah, so this was the city's dropping the ball, not recommending this to them earlier?
No, I wouldn't say that this was a drop by the city. This is a unique situation in that the right-of-way already deadheads, and so we're just extending the deadhead.
Okay.
But we have other deadheaded streets around the
Gotcha,
city.
Gotcha, okay.
Now, would we have to physically go in and create a turnaround?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
No,
So
ma'am.
it's just as is, and,
Right.
Yeah.
and so there's really no loss to Mr. Smith if he grants the easement for us to have a turnaround there.
Right. It's just, that has yet to be vetted by him, as Mr. Lingerfeld said.
Well, I feel sorry for the two parties involved that this last minute stuff has happened. As a committee member, I like to be knowledgeable before I make decisions, and I didn't feel like this happened in this case in particular.
Agree with you.
All right, if the floor is open, I'm going to close it. I can't remember where we stood on that question. So we'll just say it's closed at this point. All right, any other
Thanks, Preston.
conversation? Or questions for staff? I hear a motion.
I second.
No, do I hear a
Oh,
motion?
I'll motion to approve the right-of-way dedication on the Rocky Top Road extension.
Could I amend your motion?
Yes,
And
ma'am.
say with the recommendation that Mr. Smith grant an easement on that property? Just a recommendation.
I withdraw my motion.
You withdraw your motion?
I do.
Okay. So we don't have a motion on the floor.
And what did you say, Jenny? I didn't understand you.
I just said with the recommendation that Mr. Smith grant an easement to the city.
Because these,
And that may be under,
Could we say request instead of recommendation?
we can request, right.
Yeah.
With a request that the easement be granted?
Mr. Chair, can we vote on the original, I want to keep my motion in place of the original right-of-way dedication Rocky Top Road extension, and if we could vote on that motion first.
Okay, we
Before
didn't-
the,
Did
before
we
the.
get a second on that motion?
I do. I would need a second, yes, sir.
I'll second that.
Okay. So we have a motion to approve
As
The-
submitted.
as submitted?
Yeah.
So would you call the roll?
Yes, sir. Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Bailey,
Yes.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Oshinbaum,
Yes.
Commissioner Pavlich.
Yes.
Commissioner Rhodey,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Whitfield,
Yes.
Chairman Dagenhart.
Yes.
All right, that
All right.
motion is approved.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I think we're going to change gears to Ms. Warren. Is she here? Did I?
Can we, Mr. Chair, when I started my items, both of these ladies behind me got my attention and said they need to inform me of something relative to this item. Would it be okay if we take a 5-minute recess?
Sure, I'll put us in recess for 5 minutes. We'll be back, start back at 20 minutes to 8, I think it says.
Thank you very much.
So if we didn't grant that, would he have had legal access?
Oh, we're back in session.
Okay, Peyton, are you here? Oh. Okay, we're gonna be in session in about 1 more minute.
Okay.
So of course, we just want to push.
Okay, we're back in session. Peyton, welcome to the podium.
Hello, good evening, commissioners. So I have in front of you rezoning number 1081. You guys actually saw this last month. It is the location at the corner of South Roan Street. They're requesting to go from R1 to PB, and they're actually coming in front of you guys for a concept plan amendment. So I've already been through this, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but again, if you will remember, the whole site is currently split zoned, and they're just requesting to extend that PB into that R1 to make room for another commercial site. So again, just going back through that. Now here's where we have the differences. So in the old concept plan, you can see that the driveway is located right here, kind of on this side. Well, TDOT came back, and TDOT actually asked the applicant to push this driveway back a little bit because of control fencing. So in the new proposed concept plan, we see that we have this driveway right here, and it's just moved up about 40 feet, and it now falls on the other side of the line here. And so that changed right here. This was going to be a yellow line, and now over here we have a concrete curb right here. So really the biggest change is just this driveway kind of mirrored over the property line, and it's now going to fall on this second parcel right here. Nothing is changing as far as the building or anything in this area. The only thing that's changing is this driveway. So again, this is just a little bit of a bigger version so you guys can see it. Again, these parcels are going to share the driveway. And what we are asking you guys to approve tonight is the movement of this driveway. So because it's changed over the property lines and it's now going to fall right here and it's moving about 40 feet this way, we're asking that you approve that movement. And at the staff level, we are still in the process of working out with the applicant, TDOT, and our engineering team exactly how these turn lanes are going to work. Right now, we are not sure how it's going to look, if they're going to be able to have a turn out this way and this way, or exactly how that is going to look. So what you guys would be approving is the driveway location. And again, I would just like to remind everybody that the rezoning line, kind of going to go back to this. The rezoning line is up here. So the driveway falls a decent amount down here. So the driveway doesn't actually impact the rezoning, and we would be having this conversation with the applicant whether or not this rezoning was in front of you guys tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys. You also asked at last month's meeting, I know that there was some conversation about the exterior of the building and what Dollar Generals look like nowadays. So Whitney and I actually drove out to a new Dollar General on Watauga Road, and I snapped a picture for you guys. So this is, I guess, a prototype that Dollar General is producing. And again, going back to current and future land use, it's delineated as residential in the future, but because of its location, staff believes that commercial would be a good use.
And to remind you guys, you did recommend approval last month by a vote of 7-0.
Is this a rezoning or a change to the concept plan?
It would be a concept plan amendment if it had gone all the way through City Commission, I believe. But because it didn't go all the way through City Commission, they're changing their concept plan. It's the same rezoning that you guys saw last time. But because they had that change of the driveway location, it has to come back in front of you guys to get approval.
Okay.
But it's not.
So it hasn't been in front
It
of City
hasn't been to
Commission
City
at this
Commission
point?
yet.
No, it has not. It got pulled and it got put back in front of you
Okay, it got
guys.
pulled. Okay, it hasn't been in front of them. Okay, thank you.
Correct. So I don't believe it qualifies as a technical concept plan amendment. I could be wrong on that though.
That's helpful. I just didn't understand.
Peyton, can you go back a few slides to one of the, I think the fourth map? Keep going back. Yeah, right there. Thank you. So is that a median that's a concrete, I know you said you're fuzzy on the details right now, but on South Roan, is that a concrete median you're putting in, or?
Yes, this right here is a concrete median.
Okay.
I don't believe that we're putting it in, or we might be putting it in. I'm not positive. I know a median exists right now, and they're doing a median cut. I think that Lawrence could probably speak to that a little bit better on whether it's new or being cut.
And then you mentioned that TDOT was doing had control fencing. What is control fencing?
That is a wonderful question.
No, that's okay.
I thought all fencing controlled.
So,
That's
along the perimeter of the proposed Dollar General site, if you're familiar with this area, there is access control fencing, and essentially it's chain link fencing. Sometimes it'll have barb across the top, sometimes not. But that access control fencing is erected by TDOT, and it is access control because you're beginning to enter into a major interchange, a highway interchange. And so they put up the access control fencing reaching out from all roads that enter into the highway interchange so that there can be no development, no intrusions into that area.
Okay.
And so
I thought that was because it was vacant land, but you're saying
Right.
even when the Dollar General goes in there, that fence will still be up.
TDOT still has control, and TDOT said, you're not reducing the control access fencing, no matter what goes in there. And so that impacted their driveway location. And so as Ms. Moran eloquently stated, it needs to hop over the property line there. This does not change, and Peyton made a real good comment that there's no change to the ingress egress point. Concept plan amendments are triggered when there's the addition or removal or significant change to an ingress egress point. My concern was that we're moving the ingress egress point over onto a different property. And so what I didn't want to have happen is there be a concept plan that was approved by you all and then ultimately approved by the City Commission where that driveway was on a different piece of property.
Sure.
And so they were gracious enough to come back to the Planning Commission. We rushed this on the agenda. Their first reading was going to be on the 6th, and so now it will just be on the 21st. So it's only a 2-week impact for them. We appreciated them working with us, but they got hit with this by TDOT at the last minute.
So how many feet is it moving then? It's moving toward the top of the hill, correct?
Correct.
How far?
Approximately 40 feet.
40 feet, okay.
What was
Which is what
TDOT
we
trying to
wanted.
accomplish?
Didn't we want that in the first place?
So the
They
fence
want to
wouldn't
keep
have to
the
be
fence in
cut back.
place.
Oh, it was a fencing issue.
Yeah.
It's-
that control fence.
The fence is already there.
Yeah.
It's already there. The fence was erected when
Away
the
from the
interchange
fence.
was built.
So the fence now ends where the driveway now
Correct.
can stay.
Will that have any impact with cars pulling out there quicker, top of the hill quicker, and affecting people on Highland trying to pull out?
Are you talking about so up here from Highland, if it has any effect on the cars coming out
Yeah,
here?
the problem we discussed last time was if you're at Highland and you want to turn left, you're at your own risk. And I still have grave concerns over that. I'm assuming TDOT totally nixed any cuts on the University Parkway side.
Let me add one thing. One thing that I can add, which is very good news since your last consideration, since the Planning Commission's last consideration, is that if you recall, this parcel and this parcel had not yet dedicated the appropriate right-of-way for Public Works to come in and make improvements to South Roan Street. Since that meeting, the plat, remember, this is the concept plan, the plat has come back in, and they've dedicated all of the appropriate right-of-way along South Roan Street. And in fact, that was part of that 5:30 conversation with Phil. Phil and Lawrence, we were in that conversation and said that all that right-of-way has been dedicated. So Phil and his folks have adequate room to come in there and make the necessary improvements to South Roan.
So is there an appeal process with TDOT when they say, hey, we have to leave this fence here? Because honestly, this place would look better without that fence there, that chain link fence. So how do they have the power to be able to say, you're going to leave that fence there when, based on the city and the aesthetics of that corner, it would look much better without that fence? And that fence is doing nothing for that interstate right there, zero.
Well, they are a state agency, and so.
It's like,
Because
working
they're-
with the railroad.
So do we recommend that we disagree with that recommendation somehow? Like, because that seems silly to me.
Yeah, but, honestly, the control access fencing is, it's there for a purpose and it works. They are allowing this development to go in behind it. They limit all other access
There's tons of
around
apartments
it.
back there, though, that are so much closer.
There are,
You
but
know?
what it does is it just prevents anyone, pedestrians and anyone else who might wander or, try to get down in here into the interchange. It's just not a safe, it's not a safe area. State's not gonna, it's kind of like trying to work with the railroads,
Yeah.
I get in trouble all the time.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah, so the fence is not on their property. The fence is in the right of way.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
so
see.
that's a big distinction.
Okay, thank you.
We may have talked about this last time, and I've just forgotten. That's easy for me to do. Is this in one of our overlay districts?
It is not. We double checked.
Okay.
It's actually right on the corner of it. It's right outside. But
Does it include Walgreens, but not on the other corner, or how far up does it go?
I think it does include
it does.
Walgreens.
It's like
Right.
right. I mean, it is right on the edge of it.
The overlay
It does
district
include
does
Walgreens,
include
but it does not
Walgreens.
include this property.
Because it was residential before, right?
Possibly.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah.
That predates both Peyton and I.
Yes.
Come on, guys. Yeah, all right.
Okay, I'm going to open the floor for the public to see if there's anyone here to speak to the question. I see somebody getting up. Name and address, please.
Benjamin Berry, Berry Engineer. Benjamin Berry, Berry Engineers. Good to see you guys again. I was here last month. Just to clarify some of the things that has been discussed, tried to take some mental notes just to kind of go through what we have several processes going at the same time. This is a rezoning that is really pretty minor as far as how we're moving the property line. We also have the actual permitting where we're submitting to the city, submitting to the state. One of the things that we had to do, we knew that there was access control fencing. Let me see if this, yeah. We knew that there's access control fencing that stops at this property line here and then wraps around the entire property. And that is, that's something that's typically very difficult to get removed. Ms. Brock, to your question last month, there was no way that they were going to approve any access onto University. And the question that we had from TDOT was how far back they really needed, because when we were going to dedicate right away to the city at this point, across through here, as Mr. Mitchell stated, this particular fence on this angle was going to be removed no matter what. And so we went through the process. What we originally proposed to TDOT was when we remove this angle, we're going to stop, our new stopping location would be at this point, which would allow the driveway that we had presented. We kind of got some informal positive vibes from that. We have to submit to an excess land committee. It's a whole 3-month process. As it went through that review, they came back and they said, no, some of the people, not in the district office, but in some of the other offices, they did not want to reduce the length the total length of the fence, because of the precedent that they set with Walgreens, which asked for the same thing. That was the why, is mostly precedent. It wasn't really a technical, it wasn't really a technical reason other than just the precedent, because it still provides, I like what we had before. I think what we had before is better. I would love for the city to support that, and we go back to TDOT and see if we can do that, but at this point, they've said no. What they did say is that we can modify a request to, when we take this off, to move this point straight back here, which will make a straight line for the right-of-way fence. So we still have to go through a process with TDOT to move this fence for the decel lane, but they've agreed in concept to move it back to this point, which is why we're here. So it's, I guess from what the staff is recommending, the rezoning request the same, the concept plan slightly different with the access location. The exact configuration and engineering of that access, we'll keep working with the city on, just as we would do even if there was no rezoning request.
So if you are not allowed to move that line of the fence back so that it's a straight line, you don't have room for a decel lane?
Correct. Correct. But they have indicated that
In
they
favor,
would
but
approve
they've
that.
changed their mind before.
They did. They did. The request to reduce the length of an access fence is a much larger request than just simply changing the angle.
Okay, I understand. Thank you. Questions?
Do we have any idea how much fence is removed in the state of Tennessee in these areas annually from anybody that is here?
In Nashville, a lot.
Yeah.
The process goes through, if you're familiar with, they have an excess land committee. So when TDOT does projects, they typically overbuy land. They buy more land than they need. They get more easements than they need. They make sure they get everything they need up front. And then they finish a project, and I'm speaking generally, not in this specific case. They finish a project, a widening or interstate ramps, and then after everything kind of settles out, once the project's done, if they have over-purchased a right-of-way, if they've made a jog, or if they've created land that is true excess, then people can go and petition their excess land committee to purchase that land back from the state and put it back in the tax base, put it back in the city, put it back in that. Right-of-way fence is treated the exact same. So we go to that same committee, that excess land committee, to do any adjustments to the fence. So it's a committee that's set up just for these type of requests. They get a lot of requests, whether it's access, whether it's true excess land or whether it's access control fence modifications.
I guess one of the things that we talked about last time was this was a public safety issue about where this access was, where the hill was, and this makes it worse. Yeah, and this is a very, I think in your professional opinion, this is very, it's restrictive, and it's based on, or it has something to do with Walgreens. Has nothing to do with the safety of the interstate or at all.
We much prefer the previous plan, and we fought for it. We did not have any official letter from the city, and we did not push it all the way to the Nashville office, where things get more in the political realm than the technical realm. But we got multiple responses in different levels that it would receive no support from the district office to move that back.
So if the city commissioner or more entities in the city said this is a safety issue for a hill, do you feel like that would be huge in the original plan?
If the governor told TDOT to remove that fence, it would be removed. And you could go down from there, and I'm not sure at what level TDOT would say yes.
This is exactly why I'm here, because of things like this. I don't like red tape, and I don't like stupid decisions that could potentially hurt someone pulling out and getting killed in a car accident. So.
Did you request a letter from the city?
I have not, no, we did not push it any further.
Thank you.
I have one final question while you're up here.
Yes.
Does Dollar General have different styles of stores that they build in different places?
Yes, they meet whatever the minimum requirement that code makes them meet.
It's not in our overlay district, missed it by one corner, but we sure would appreciate a really nice-looking store there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Thanks.
Mr. Barry. Yes, come forward, please. And your name and address, please, for the record.
Dale Webb, 105 East Highland Road, directly across, not the corner house, next house over. Excellent point. Walked it off today before I came up here. 150 foot approximately from the corner of Highland Road to the peak of the hill. 120 foot from the peak of the hill to where the median is, it turns in to Walgreens. So that being said, they're wanting to move it closer up that direction. Just another reason for a good break right there. Don't have visibility.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak? Okay, I'm going to close the floor. So conversation, questions, discussion.
I know we talked about this at length last time in terms of a safety issue, but I still think we need to have a right turn only out of this business. And if they need to come back around, you can go Highland, you know, and then Legion, get back on University Parkway. I just think it's not worth the risk to turn left there, and a lot of people will take that risk.
Particularly with this move. I mean, I would like to talk about a motion I might want to make, which is tabling this 1 month and having our city commission and our local representatives, whether this is Hicks or Alexander's district, I'm not sure, but it's definitely Crow, to reach out, because this is silly. And if it didn't have to do with people potentially pulling out and getting hit, I don't think I would be such a stickler on it. But if that doesn't impact your timeline to wait a month to see if something could be done with this, I think it's potentially worthwhile to do.
Yeah, come forward. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we would be fully supportive of a delay in time if we, in order to get full backing from the city for the previous concept, that we
Okay.
would be all for that.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think that's a great idea. I mean, we're between a rock and a hard place.
Yes, I agree.
For sure.
Yes. Other questions or comments?
Certainly to prove, like, we don't have the authority to say we can give the city's recommendation on this, right? We can give all, I don't know if Jenny, what you can do, but I couldn't tell them that, yeah, we'll give our full support.
No, I think what,
Yeah.
go ahead and go through you're gonna make a motion on that?
I can, if we're out of discussion.
Okay, any other conversation? No, you can make a
Okay.
motion anytime. you
So
like.
I move to table our current resolution we're discussing, and as a planning commission, recommend to our city commission and our local representatives to officially approach TDOT in written form, asking based on public safety to remove this incredibly small piece of fence.
So I think it would be to staff, the recommendation to staff.
Yeah, to staff to utilize our city's volunteers of leaders to try to resolve this issue. Yep.
No, that's a very reasonable and bold motion. And if I could just address Commissioner Whitfield's question, in terms of process and where we are in the Planning Commission, because the concept plan has been has been changed by moving it over onto the different property, we staff won't put it back on the City Commission agenda until this is resolved. And so your question is a great one. But if I was to be forced to put it on the City Commission agenda, let's say for the 21st, we would be forced to tell the City Commission, you have conflict, you have conflicting information on your concept plan. Most likely, the City Commission would then table it too and send it back to the Planning Commission and say, figure this out.
Yeah.
So there's no problem with delaying it, especially since the applicants since the applicant and the development representative is here and he's agreed to that.
So in what form would we make a request to the city commission, or we would be making a
Back to
request to
staff.
staff?
Right.
Yeah.
To work with the city to compose a written request to TDOT.
The way that, Commissioner Oceanbaum, I hope I said that right.
I was just rephrasing.
worded it is perfect.
Consider.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Any more discussion about the motion, or do we? Okay. Nicole, would you read the motion, please?
Sorry, Nicole.
Thanks. Now, just to be clear, you do want to defer it to the November meeting, correct? Okay. So, I will get the wording absolutely correct.
From the
From the
recording,
actual
yeah.
recording, but what I have is to defer to the November meeting for staff to work with, for city staff to work with the applicant and TDOT to resolve the fencing
Well,
issue.
and our local elected
And
officials.
local elected officials, okay?
Okay, so we've got,
And I have a question, probably for Mr. Mitchell or Jenny. Is this something we think we can reasonably do in a month with TDOT?
We'll see.
I don't know them, I'm guessing no.
Well, at a
I don't wanna
minimum.
I don't make the applicant
At a
wait.
minimum, we can report back to you in November. I can tell you that we will begin working on this first thing in the morning.
Okay.
So, and Mr. Berry will be right there with us,
Okay.
helping us. But yes, and we've got all the proper contacts. And of course, we've got contacts with our local delegation. And so, yes, we will start on this
They need
first,
to be called in.
first thing in the morning,
Okay,
correct?
thank you.
okay, thank you. Any other discussion? All right, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Bailey,
Yes.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Oshinbaum,
Yes.
Commissioner Pavlich,
Yes.
Commissioner Rhodey,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Whitfield,
Yes.
Chairman Dagenhart.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Good, thank you very much. All right, Ms. Hodges, you're back up to talk about a
Mr. Berry, thank you for that.
subdivision regulations.
I think it'll be a better project all the way around.
I am going to make this as hopefully quick and painless as possible.
Good idea.
As you know, subdivision regulations are basically come to you guys and are kind of the end of it. What we are proposing are in your packet are kind of like four big things, four things. The major, I would say probably the biggest one is about streets and basically utilizing some of the things we already have within our code and then establishing a couple of new things just to begin to maybe take some steps to see, okay, will this work when it comes to street design? Because what was happening, what has been happening, and we discussed this with the land use committee, is that when you have smaller lots and smaller streets, there creates conflict with emergency services and waste services of getting through even like Amazon packages, of maneuvering some of these areas. So to look at context sensitive kind of solutions where if we're going to have smaller streets, or sorry, smaller lots, we might need wider streets just so that everyone can move around and the street can function. A big thing is that we are the stewards of these streets and we need to make sure that they are done well. So one of the things is we can go ahead and already utilize some of the things that we have. One of them being that if we use cul-de-sacs versus the hammerhead turnarounds, that's also one of the issues of when people kind of start to park in them. Utility easements, I know that we did grant a variance just this evening for utility easements, but by maybe in future developments, really kind of sticking to some of those, that will provide some greater space in the lot. So those are two that are already there. The other one that's there is that all of our cross-section designs are minimums. So as that we are looking at projects that are in the subdivision realm, some in the concept plan realm, to look at, well, these are the minimum widths that we need, but does it fit all the things? A street needs to fit all the things, and that includes utilities, sidewalks, if we need planting strips, however that may look and what the developer is looking to do, it needs to fit into this right of way. So one of our proposed changes, and I've kept it in the green just so it's consistent with if you read through the regulations, is to add this table so that if you have particular lot widths, there are certain cross sections that can be used. And for instance, if you had something that was less than 50 feet, you would need rear access so that you would have a rear-loaded garage. You couldn't really have a front-loaded garage because that 25 feet that we have for the front-loaded garage for a driveway sometimes doesn't always get all the cars of the household on the off the street. The second was something that that's being added is compatibility with city codes. The fire code change, the city changed or adopted the fire codes from 2018, I believe, in the international building codes. We're just adding something in the subdivision regulations that kind of let the developers know that that's what happened. Because right now, you kind of have to know a little bit, but this is giving a reference to our city code. Okay, that was streets, and we can talk about that. Then we're going to remove some text for street trees. I would like it to come back when it's not a recommendation and actually a requirement. So that's really what this text is saying like, hey, we recommend you do it, but you don't have to, so it's a little pointless. The third is vested rights. And so what we're doing is cleaning up language so that it mirrors what we would have at the state level. And so that we're not in conflict with that. And just to provide some clarity as we administer it, as others who are looking to see if they have a vested right, that it makes it a little more clear. There's other things that's been cut out. I just kind of put the things that we are adding. And lastly, we are changing a map. On the left is an outdated city map, and on the right is a current map. And those are all the changes to the subdivision regulations that we are proposing. And that is a big, broad stroke right now of drinking from a fire hose. So if there was anything that you would like to discuss further, we can do it now. If you need to table it, I understand. It's getting really late.
And we are the last stop on this ride.
You are
When
the
these
last stop
changes are
on this.
voted on, they're done.
Yes.
All right, questions for staff?
A couple of questions.
Shoot.
First, can you just walk me through going to the, I think it was your number 2, the vesting period type of projects? Can you just walk me through what this?
I can learn how to.
Yep.
Okay.
Walk me through
I
this
actually am going to
table.
let Preston walk you through this
Okay.
because he knows a little bit more about that than.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to do this because I don't think you were here at the last meeting when I started on this. Really, there is no change. We're not proposing any changes to the vesting language. What we're doing is we are bringing our current subreg vesting language more in line. Shouldn't even say more, just more clear with the state. Because some of our language, so again, as we've discussed in the past, green underline proposes new language, red strike proposes to remove language. What you see that is just black and white is existing language and proposed not to change. So are we clear on that?
Yes.
So if you see here in this table, where you see existing black and white, there's very little of it. And so what that means is that it lacked the necessary detail, okay? And so, for example, up here on the initial 3-year vesting period, our current subregs just say 3 years, period. Doesn't say anything else. So we're saying 3 years from Planning Commission approval. Right now, the current language says obtain construction plan approval and secure necessary permits. Well, the state goes on, the general statutes go on to say, and commence site preparation within the vesting period. That's an important distinction. That's, or maybe not distinction, but piece of detail. Yeah, thank you. If you commence site prep within the vesting period, at the end of that initial vesting period, you get an additional 2 years. Right now, our subregs just say 3 years, 2 years. No additional detail. So what we're doing here is we're providing additional detail that's in line with the general statutes. We're not proposing to change the policy, change or do anything that is out of alignment with the general statutes. We are just better aligning our subregs with the general statutes.
That was my question. There's no policy changes here?
No.
Okay. And my second question, regarding the trees removal section?
We like that to come back. It's the way
Why
it
don't we
reads.
just put some green then and like make, instead of recommendation,
Hmm?
can we not add language to it?
You, at this, you could recommend language. We would need to pull it from this particular thing because it would still need 30 days. And so what we're really trying to do is to take it out for now and in order to bring language back. Because it is of my opinion that to put this in would also need to coordinate with like how we're looking at open space, how we're really treating that like if we're really going to require street trees, then we need to sit down and think through what that means on a level.
Okay.
Instead of.
And that would go to the land use?
It would.
Subcommittee, I'm guessing? Okay.
So would that not,
Yes.
I apologize, Whitney. No, it's a great question, and we touched on this last month. I don't like, can't think of a better way of saying that, removing this language because I think we would all in the room agree that we want and need street trees. The problem, though, is that, and this was one of the things that the city commission, and back when Mayor Brock was Mayor Brock, when I first started here, one of the things that the city commissioners and that you all and Mr. Peterson came to me is they said, Preston, we have a serious trust issue with the development community. The development community does not trust your department and does not trust us. And we need to repair that relationship with the development community. Well, one of the first things you can do is you have to build in predictability to the development process. The development process has to be predictable. Not only does it have to be predictable, but you have to be consistent.
Sure.
That's dangerous language to say, although not required by these regulations. That's the first thing it says. Although not required by these regulations, blah.
All subjective at that point.
Yeah.
After that, it's basically garbage language. And it opens up a situation where someone might act arbitrarily. And that erodes that trust. And so we need to remove it now. We'll come back, have this conversation. Peyton is so excited about jumping on with open space and a number of other items, but we have got to have these policy conversations in the right forums, get the policies adopted as the city commission sees fit, and then we build in that predictability.
but wouldn't we have to leave this until we amend it and vote on it? Right now, that has been voted on and approved.
Well, no, I mean, these are in the subregs, it's not in the zoning code, and so that came before you 30 days ago, and so this is your time to act on that, and so we're just simply asking that you remove that piece.
So is it free for all until we vote on it?
Yeah, that's the whole thing. I mean, how does this apply then to a builder if there's nothing there?
It isn't applying now.
It's not.
So.
It's optional now.
It's optional now, so it's not really changing anything. If they wanted to add street trees, it's still optional for them.
It's like, if you want to spend some extra money, you can, but if you don't
Yes.
have to, don't. Yeah, who's going to do that?
We don't need to have that.
Yeah, I understand that,
Yeah.
but that still has been approved. It's in our regulations right now.
Yeah.
It hasn't been disapproved, nor has anybody approved removing it.
Well, we're on the 30-day clock to complete the removal. Isn't that correct?
Right.
We've initiated the removal, but it's not valid until 30 days pass and we vote a second time. So that's tonight.
Yeah. So staff is basically recommending that since as a city or a commission or whatever, we're not willing to take a hard stand on this, because it's in regulations and it's fluffy, we need to take it out.
Correct.
Okay.
So,
Staff is saying that they would like to see us take it up as an additional review in a more comprehensive way around open space development, green space development, and environmentally friendly communities.
Correct.
Sounds like a bill.
And to do that, that would be done with planning commission, or does this go to city commission if we did? Because it's subdivision regs, it would just stay with the
This is
planning,
us.
right?
It's just us.
It's just
Because
us.
it's us if it's.
Unless it got adopted into the zoning code, it
Okay. But if we're just changing subdivision regs, it stays here.
stays here.
Okay, that's what I thought. Those are my questions, Whitney. Thank you.
You have more questions? More questions of discussion? Do we all understand this is the end of the 30-day clock, and when we vote tonight, it's either we make a change to what we said 30 days ago and another 30-day clock starts, right? or we approve, we validate what we said 30 days ago.
I motion to remove the language and the other stated changes with the caveat of having a subcommittee formed to investigate whether we want to come back with other staff members and write more firm language regarding the trees.
Well, I mean,
Right, because the whole reason we're having problems pulling this out is because we like the idea of it, right? But it's not concrete, so no one's doing it. So the staff's like, well, no one's doing it, so why is it in there?
but I think this
Right.
falls under the subcommittee, the land use subcommittee already.
Okay.
This is already on the docket.
It provides some good guidelines.
Yes,
Even as
that's
it's
right,
state
that's
right
right,
now.
that's right, that's right. So
Okay.
you're saying that the land committee
The land use committee
chairman will probably
already
start
exists.
talking about this no matter what. That's perfect. Okay, great.
Okay. So your motion is
To approve the recommendations of the staff.
as written.
As written.
proposed,
As presented.
As voted
Yes.
30 days ago.
Correct, yes, sir.
I second.
Second. All right, further discussion. Okay, call the question, Nicole.
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Bailey,
Yes.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Oshinbaum,
Yes.
Commissioner Pavlich,
Yes.
Commissioner Rhodey,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Whitfield,
Yes.
and Chairman Dagenhart.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you, Whitney. That was relatively painless. All right, any other business to come before the commission? Meeting adjourned.
Good job, ladies and gentlemen.